My top scientist husband used our fertilized egg, while I was pregnant, to cultivate a biological container for his white moonlight. He said it was the future of humanity, only to carry her immortal consciousness. From then on, he ate and slept with that culture dish. Seeing my heart break, he said coldly, "What are you making a fuss about? It's just a research project. Without her, my entire scientific career will stagnate, and human civilization will suffer losses. Are you that selfish?" Until my parents came to visit, a sudden fire broke out in the laboratory. My parents were trapped in the fire, and I knelt before him, sobbing, begging him to save my parents first. But he desperately protected that culture dish. You know, Shushua's consciousness data is unique, and once damaged, it cannot be recovered. They're just choked by smoke. What could be the big deal? You just can't stand me being nice to Shushue. I was completely desperate. After handling my parents' funeral, I made a call. From now on, Dome Technology and I belong to you. On the other end of the phone, Helinjo's voice was filled with suppressed anger. Yen Ci, do you think I want your Yen family's Dome Technology? He seemed to sense something was wrong with me, and his tone softened. Okay, wait for me to finish things here, and I'll return home immediately. We can discuss Dome Technology when we meet. After hanging up the phone, I held my parents' cold urns, my fingers touching the carvings on the urns, the pattern my mother loved most in life. Ji Xuanzhou, on the grounds that the laboratory was burned and needed an absolutely sterile environment, took Luo Shushue's container to a private research institute with the highest level of security. He didn't even send anyone to offer a word of condolence, let alone attend my parents' funeral. His absence was taken for granted. The heart-wrenching cries for help from my parents in the fire echoed repeatedly in my mind. The doctor's words were filled with regret. Only Professor G's stem cell regeneration technology might be able to save them, but I knew what came after that, Ji Xuanzhou's stem cell regeneration technology was the jewel in his scientific crown, the capital he was so proud of. All of this was only for that woman named Luo Shushue, for her illusory immortal consciousness. My parents' lives were clearly not worthy of occupying his precious technology and time. I just watched my parents die in front of me. The straight line on the vital signs monitor became my eternal nightmare. Meanwhile, Ji Xuanzhou's WeChat moments showed a focused profile of him adjusting the nutrient solution for that glass culture dish. He captioned it, "Shushue, we will be truly reunited soon." I scoffed at the phone screen. On the wall, the exhibition board of scientific achievements we had jointly signed, most of which had been blackened and burned. Only the initials of our names, Y and J, remained in the corner made of special fireproof material. Ji Xuanzhou suddenly appeared, wearing a brand new sterile protective suit. "I'm here to retrieve the core data backup for Shushue." He went straight to the fireproof safe at the deepest part of the lab, skillfully entered the password, opened the safe, and took out a silver hard drive. He held the hard drive as if holding a fragile treasure. He had a relieved expression on his face, the corners of his mouth even slightly raised. "It's good this is okay, otherwise Shushue's consciousness would be in danger." "Oh, that's such a pity," I thought blankly. He murmured to the air, "No," to that hard drive, in a gentle tone I had never heard before. "Be good, don't be afraid, our future is coming soon." Then he finally realized my presence, perhaps because my gaze was too direct. He turned his head, his eyes instantly turning cold, the gentleness from before gone. Sacrifices in scientific research are inevitable. You wouldn't even care about that, would you? Care? I laughed miserably. So in his eyes, my parents' lives were nothing more than sacrifices in scientific research. 3 years ago, he convinced me to participate in a superior birth and upbringing embryo cultivation program, painting a grand blueprint for human gene optimization. I was overjoyed, thinking it would be the crystallization of our love, a continuation of our shared scientific ideals, and the beginning of our future family happiness. As a result, the embryo formed from the egg I provided, and the sperm he provided was prepared from the beginning as an consciousness carrier for Luo Shushue. What I conceived with my own hands was a container for his white moonlight. This is truly a cosmic-level joke. He guarded that culture dish day and night, saying that only by being by her side could his scientific inspiration continue to flow. He said it was for the benefit of all mankind. I returned to what used to be our home, that icy villa, and waited for him. 3 hours later he finally appeared, his face filled with undisguised impatience. "What are you making a scene about again? Trying to use Mom and Dad's death to gain sympathy, and force me to abandon Shushua's research?" "Making a scene?" I chuckled softly. "My mom and dad are dead, and you say I'm making a scene?" He slammed a document onto the coffee table. "Want a divorce? Yensi, don't regret it." The words on the document were blurry, my vision slightly distorted. Yes, I had loved him to the point of being in the dust. He was the industry's most dazzling rising star. At an international academic conference, I was deeply attracted by the scientific blueprint he depicted and the light in his eyes. At the time, I sitting in the audience only had eyes for him. My family, Cheonding Technology, used all its resources to build him a world-class biological laboratory. I thought it was a powerful alliance, a collaboration to create humanity's future. Now that I think about it, I was just a sucker, spending my own money to pay for someone else's dream. I took the initiative in proposing. That day he was staring blankly at an old photo of Luo Shushua, the woman in the photo smiling brightly, full of confidence. I walked over and mustered the courage to ask, "Let's get married, shall we?" Hearing my words, he just mmm'd faintly, as if granting permission. He didn't even look up, just like responding to a secretary's work report. Luo Shushua was his deceased mentor, and also his publicly acknowledged research partner and soulmate. An accidental laboratory accident took her life. He once held my hand, his eyes shining with fervent light. Shushua's wisdom is a beacon of human civilization. Her passing is an immeasurable loss. All my research is to continue her light, to let her live on in another form. I believed it then, and was even moved by his deep feelings, thinking it was a supreme love for science. Looking back now, it's utterly ridiculous. I, the legal wife, was actually defeated by the shadow of a dead person. His cold voice pulled me back from my memories. "This little thing, only you would make such a fuss about it, so impatient." "Little thing?" I stared at him. "My mom and dad are dead, and you say it's a little thing?" "They were old anyway, they were going to die sooner or later." He didn't care at all. So in his heart, my parents' lives were so cheap. "Calm down first. I'll talk to you again after Shushua's consciousness stabilizes." His phone suddenly rang. When he saw the notation Research Institute Assistant on the caller ID, he immediately tensed up. "Data fluctuations? Don't panic, send me the detailed parameters. I'll go back and monitor it immediately." Just a second ago, he was complaining that my parents' death was a trivial matter, but the next second he was facing a data fluctuation like it was a major crisis. That kind of tension and tenderness, once upon a time, only appeared when our experiments made significant breakthroughs. Now it was all given to that cold container. He left in a hurry, without even looking at me again. I sat in the empty living room, and suddenly wanted to laugh. After 3 years of marriage, this was the first time I had lost to a petri dish. I opened my laptop and, as if possessed, entered a string of code that I knew by heart. It was the highest remote monitoring authority for all his experimental equipment. I had designed it for him myself. Browsing through the historical operation records, my fingers grew colder inch by inch. On the day my parents had the accident, 3 minutes before the fire alarm system went off, all the fire safety doors in the laboratory were remotely locked. The IP address that issued the operating instructions clearly pointed to Ji Xuanzhou's personal terminal. And the life support system of that container, the priority of all energy supplies, had been adjusted to the highest level. So it wasn't an accident. It was murder. I slumped onto the sofa. To protect that petri dish, he actually locked the fire doors. My parents were trapped alive in the sea of fire, while he was outside, guarding his precious container. This man, the man I once loved deeply, was actually a complete lunatic. I came out of the operating room, my abdomen empty. There had been my child. That child, meant to be the testament of our love, had ultimately become the prototype of the perfect vessel, he prepared for Luo Shushua. The doctor sighed softly. This was the nth time I'd shown signs of a threatened miscarriage due to severe emotional fluctuations and physical reasons. This time the child wasn't saved. I lay in the hospital bed and opened my phone. On moments, Ji Xuanzhou's assistant excitedly updated a status. A record-breaking moment. Professor Ji successfully imported Professor Luo's early memory fragments into the cradle. The spark of consciousness ignited for the first time. The post was accompanied by an image of a fleeting, faint brainwave activity curve in a petri dish. Looking at the picture, I suddenly wanted to laugh. Almost simultaneously, He Linzhou's call came in immediately. How are you? I'm at the airport. Which hospital are you in? I'm fine. My voice was hoarse. The child is gone. A heavy sigh came from the other end of the phone. Just then my lawyer also called, his tone serious. Ms. Yen, regarding the preliminary investigation into the fire at your parents' laboratory, we have made a significant discovery. The cause of the fire may involve human factors and data tampering on the core server. I couldn't imagine the profound despair my parents experienced locked inside the burning fire. The last phone call they made to me before they died, the signal broken and intermittent, their voices filled with unease. Cici, Xuanzhou seems to be doing some experiment we don't know about. You have to be careful. I had reassured them at the time, saying that Ji Xuanzhou was a good person, and told them not to worry. Looking back now, my stupidity at that time was worthy of a Guinness World Record application. Ji Xuanzhou's phone call also came in right after. Yan Ci, what does your like mean? Who are you sarcastically trying to mock? I was stunned and looked down at my phone. It turned out that I had accidentally clicked like, while browsing moments. Ji Xuanzhou, I lost my child. Come back, we'll talk about divorce. Silence followed on the other end of the phone for a moment. It was just an embryo. You can have another one. Shushua's consciousness awakening is the most important thing right now. Don't be unreasonable. Just an embryo. I laughed coldly. So my child, my flesh and blood, was just an embryo in his eyes, while the thing in that petri dish was his treasure. Ji Xuanzhou, do you know? My voice was very soft. I suddenly think that my miscarriage for this child might be a good thing. At least he doesn't have to have a father like you. His rapid breathing came from the other end of the phone. Yan Ci, what do you mean by that? I hung up the phone directly. The phone vibrated, and the assistant sent an encrypted message. CEO Yen, the core patent that your parents secretly transferred from Cheongding Technology's secret account, and a moral risk assessment report on Ji Xuanzhou's early research, have been found. Ji Xuanzhou rarely returned to the villa. He didn't come to discuss divorce, but for a gene authorization form. He threw the document in front of me. Shushua's consciousness is rejecting the container. We need your maternal mitochondrial genes to create a gene bridge and stabilize the consciousness carrier. Sign it. I looked at him. My child is gone, and now you want my genes to save your white moonlight. He frowned tightly. It was originally prepared for Shushua. Your genes are currently the best match. Don't be childish. This is science, not romance. Science. I laughed until tears streamed down my face, grabbed the report from the coffee table, and threw it hard at his face. It was the Ethical Risk Assessment Report on Ji Xuanzhou's early research project by the Cheongding Technology Ethics Committee, left to me by my parents. The report clearly concluded that his research many years ago already involved forbidden areas that were strictly prohibited. His face changed slightly, and he quickly glanced at the contents of the report. He sneered. An outdated thing. Yan Ci, do you think you can threaten me with this? Outdated. I stood up. It clearly records that you started live experiments 10 years ago. Do you know why my parents refused to give you project funding? Because they found out you were experimenting on stray animals. Ji Xuanzhou's eyes suddenly darkened. Those were all necessary scientific explorations. Necessary scientific explorations? I couldn't help but think of what He Linzhou once said. Do you know what people in the industry call you? Madman Ji. Even your colleagues think you're crazy. Before the words were finished, he suddenly took a step forward, reached out and grabbed my arm. and even took out a blood collection needle with his other hand. He wanted to forcibly extract my blood sample. I instinctively dodged backward, but he grabbed me. You can't escape, Yanci. Shushua can't wait too long. Her consciousness is dissipating. Let me go. I struggled desperately. Be good, it's just drawing some blood. His voice had a morbid gentleness. This is the only contribution you can make to science. I screamed in terror, retreating again and again. The violent emotional fluctuations tightened my chest, and my asthma flared up without warning. I covered my throat. My breathing became rapid and difficult, and my vision blurred. He turned a blind eye and only focused on holding my arm. His eyes filled with a determination to obtain the experimental material. Ji Xuanzhou, you're really crazy. I shouted with the last of my strength. Just as the needle was about to pierce my skin, the villa door was kicked open with tremendous force. Ji Xuanzhou, how dare you touch her? He Linzhou rushed in with several black-suited bodyguards. He punched Ji Xuanzhou hard in the face, knocking him to the ground. The blood collection needle flew far away, rolling on the floor with a crisp sound. He quickly took out a spare inhaler from his pocket and skillfully used it for me. The warm mist entered my lungs, and I was finally able to breathe smoothly. Ji Xuanzhou wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, his eyes flashing with crazy light. He Linzhou, this is our family affair. Why are you interfering? Family affair? He Linzhou sneered. Forcibly drawing blood is a family affair? Ji Xuanzhou, you're not a scientist anymore, you're just a pervert. Ji Xuanzhou got up from the ground. He turned to me. Yanci for Shushua, I must get your genes today. He suddenly pressed a device on his wrist. The villa's security system was instantly activated, and heavy alloy doors and windows fell from all sides, making dull sounds. We were completely trapped here. He looked at us. Without handing over the genes, no one will get out of here. He Linzhou shielded me behind him, confronting the security robots controlled by Ji Xuanzhou. This villa was a fortress personally designed by Ji Xuanzhou, impregnable. I trembled as I pulled out my phone, trying to call the police, but found that all signals were blocked. Ji Xuanzhou's voice came from the loudspeaker. Don't waste your energy, Yanci. He Linzhou remained calm, analyzing in a low voice. He doesn't dare to really hurt you. He needs you alive to provide the gene. We're stalling for time. My people are outside cracking the security system. I stared at the surveillance cameras on the wall, suddenly remembering a detail. I lowered my voice and said to He Linzhou, he has a habit, he can't hear outside sounds when he's focused on an experiment. Ji Xuanzhou's voice came through the monitor again, shouting at us. Yanci, I'll give you one last half hour. Shuxue's consciousness is weakening. The data loss is very serious. Can you really bear to see her die again? I remembered what my parents said in their last phone call. They said there was a secret area in Ji Xuanzhou's laboratory that they had never been to. I quickly recalled the structural diagram of the villa in my mind, which I had personally reviewed. I thought it was just strengthening the walls during renovation. But now it seems he had been preparing for all this for a long time. I pointed to a load-bearing wall in the corner of the living room, behind which was a huge bookshelf in the study. There, behind the bookshelf, it may lead to his secret laboratory. He Linzhou's men immediately understood what I meant, and began to try pinpoint blasting on that wall from the outside. In the monitor, Ji Xuanzhou's warning became hysterical. If you dare to move again, I will activate the laboratory's self-destruct program. Everyone will be buried with great science. I sneered. Ji Xuanzhou, are you willing to let your precious Shushue be buried with us? Sure enough, his threatening voice stopped abruptly. Taking advantage of the fact that Ji Xuanzhou's attention was diverted by the commotion outside, He Linzhou quickly took me to inspect the study. He quickly found a movable cover plate at the joint of a ventilation duct. He put the main defense on the doors and walls. This is the only weak point. Without hesitation, we ventured into the narrow ventilation duct. The air inside the duct was damp and stinky, like a mixture of disinfectant and decaying matter. At the end of the duct, a faint blue light shone through. It was indeed a hidden underground laboratory, larger and more alarming than the laboratory above ground. In the center of the laboratory was a huge cylindrical glass container, and Luo Shushue's biological container was suspended inside, surrounded by countless complex instruments and flashing data screens. But what made my blood run cold was that around the container, there were also more than a dozen small petri dishes arranged. Inside were several early embryos with highly similar gene sequences to mine, all marked with the red word failures. My hands started to tremble. The dates on those labels, the earliest could be traced back to 3 years ago. 3 years ago, we were still in the honeymoon period. I understood instantly. He wasn't trying for the first time. My child was just his latest, and most successful, material. Those nights when he said he had to work overtime, he was actually here tinkering with these things. On the huge projection on the wall, Luo Shushue's pre-mortem video data was being played in a loop. She was talking eloquently at academic conferences, and concentrating on research in the laboratory. Ji Xuanzhou's murmur came from the console, full of obsession. Shushue, only you can understand my greatness. Soon we can fight side by side again. He was immersed in his own world until the sound of us coming out of the ventilation shaft startled him. He turned his head sharply and pressed the alarm. How did you get in here? Boom. Several heavy metal rolling doors crashed down, completely sealing off all exits and turning this place into an airtight cage. Ji Xuanzhou pointed to the photos and medical reports on the wall, all marked with harsh red XS. It's all because of you. Your willpower is simply not enough. Why can't you completely become her? You've wasted so much of Shushue's precious video footage and diaries. He Linzhou shielded me behind him. Ji Xuanzhou, you're guilty of illegal detention and long-term mental manipulation and personality induction of Yen Ci. These are enough to have you spend the rest of your life in prison. Ji Xuanzhou laughed wildly, as if he had heard the biggest joke in the world. Prison? As long as Yen Ci can become Shushue's shadow, allowing her to live in this world in another way, I'm the most devoted person. All the criticism will turn into praise. Devotion? He Linzhou's tone suddenly turned cold. Are you referring to cutting her brake line and creating that so-called accidental car accident? Ji Xuanzhou's wild laughter stopped abruptly. You. How could you know? He Linzhou, of course I know. Shushue had long sensed your paranoia and madness. A week before her death, she gave me a backup of all her research notes and a handwritten letter. She said that if anything happened to her, I must reveal the truth to the public. In the letter, she said that she loved you, but also feared you. She called your feelings for her a gorgeous cage. She had planned to lay everything bare and then leave you, but unexpectedly, you didn't even give her that chance. No. She's lying. She loves me. Ji Xuanzhou's defenses completely collapsed. She wanted to leave. She wanted to leave me for her career. I gave her everything. Why should she leave? If I can't have her, no one can. It was a madman like you who ruined her. He Linzhou's eyes were bloodshot, and he suddenly rushed towards Ji Xuanzhou, and the two instantly grappled together. Ji Xuanzhou had long been corroded by jealousy and madness, and his strength was surprisingly great. He actually gained the upper hand for a moment, pinning He Linzhou to the ground. I am not Luo Shushue's shadow. I am Yen Ci. My life cannot be ruined by this madman. My gaze swept around and finally settled on a red metal box in the corner, a fire hydrant box. I used all my strength to rush over, smash the glass, and take out the high-pressure water gun inside. The fire system here is connected to an independent high-pressure water pump. I turned on the valve and aimed it at Ji Xuanzhou, who was strangling He Linzhou's neck. Let him go. I roared. Ji Xuanzhou turned his head. Even you want to rebel against me? The next second, I pulled the trigger. An extremely powerful stream of water gushed out from the nozzle. The huge impact made him lose his balance in an instant and fall to the ground with a scream. He Linzhou seized the opportunity to break free, and quickly pulled a security card from Ji Xuanzhou's pocket. Go. We successfully escaped that suffocating underground laboratory. Outside the villa, He Linzhou's men had completely taken control of the situation. I recalled that academic report meeting that changed my life forever. When Ji Xuanzhou was giving a spirited speech on stage, Linjo was sitting in the first row below. I remember his eyes were complex then, as if he wanted to say something, but in the end he just remained silent. I softly asked Linjo beside me. Back then, did you already know something? Linjo was silent for a moment before slowly saying, Ji Xuanzhou's research direction has always been radical, even a bit transgressing. I once reminded your father, but he admired Ji Xuanzhou's displayed talent and passion too much. Also, the first time you had an asthma attack, in the old experimental building at school, I was the one who found you and carried you to the hospital. Ji Xuanzhou just happened to pass by after we left you. Mistook him. So, the life-saving grace that I had been grateful for so many years, and even gambled my life's happiness on, was the wrong person from the start. I was the biggest joke in the world. It's all my fault, I choked out, tears silently streaming down my face. I was too naive, treating a devil as an angel, and even harmed my parents. Linjo reached out and gently stroked my head. It's not your fault. He hid too deeply, disguised himself too well. Now it's all over. I suddenly remembered something. The day my parents had the accident, Ji Xuanzhou told me he was going to meet a very important investor. I immediately had the lawyer retrieve all of Ji Xuanzhou's communication records and secret whereabouts from the past 6 months. Soon the results were in. He did have frequent secret contact with a notorious overseas foundation, known for supporting various high-risk, high-return cutting-edge technologies, many of which were gray projects bordering on ethics and law. And after the fire, this foundation immediately injected a huge sum of research funding into him. I understood completely. In order to obtain more research funds, in order to completely break free from the control of my family's Cheongding technology, he may have even precisely calculated my parents' deaths into his plan. Ji Xuanzhou escaped through a secret passage in the villa that I didn't know about. The police immediately issued a nationwide wanted order. As the chairman of Sky Dome Technology, I convened an emergency board meeting, froze all funds related to Ji Xuanzhou's projects, and severed all his ties with the company. Board members, I said, sitting in the head seat of the conference room. All of Ji Xuanzhou's research projects are suspended effective immediately. His laboratory is sealed, and all related personnel are dismissed. Several older board members exchanged glances. One of them spoke, Chairman Yan, this will cause huge economic losses. Losses? I chuckled. Compared to my parents' lives, what is this money? The conference room fell silent instantly. These old foxes understood that I had already obtained evidence of Ji Xuanzhou's crimes. Using the core technology patents left by my parents, I began to integrate all the company's resources, preparing for a complete counterattack. Ji Xuanzhou, on the run, still tried every means to contact me. On the phone his voice was frantic and urgent. Yanxi, give me your genes. Only I can complete Xu Shui. Without her, my life is meaningless. Please. I was almost shocked by his audacity. At this time, he was still thinking about his Xu Shui? Ji Xuanzhou, are you really crazy? I sneered. Do you think I'll help you after you killed my parents? That wasn't killing. It was for a greater cause. Yanxi, you don't understand, you'll never understand. I coldly hung up the phone, and directly handed this hysterical recording over to the police as evidence of his extremely unstable mental state. Linjo shook his head beside me. This guy is really sick. He wants your genes, what a dream. A few days later, the news came. Ji Xuanzhou was arrested at an abandoned dock. He was trying to smuggle himself out of the country when he was caught. He was still tightly holding that container, which had completely lost all signs of life, and the nutrient solution had become cloudy. According to the police officers at the scene, when he was found, he was talking to himself in front of the container, muttering, Xu Shui, we'll be free soon, we'll be together soon. Hearing this news, I couldn't help but shudder. This man's obsession had reached an appalling level. In the interrogation room of the police station, separated by a thick layer of glass, I confronted him. My parents' death. I looked into his eyes. Was it related to you, wasn't it? He suddenly laughed, tears streaming down his face. They discovered my secret financial transactions, and wanted to use the Sky Dome Technology Board of Directors to stop my research on Xu Shui. They were too much in the way, Yanxi, too much in the way. My hands clenched into fists. So you killed them? Not killing. Clearing obstacles. He excitedly slapped the table. On the day of the fire, I remotely locked all the safety doors and shut down the automatic fire suppression system in some areas. I wanted them to understand that no one can stop my love for Xu Shui. Your purpose was to create a large enough accident. Smart. He grinned. In order to completely remove obstacles and fully control the laboratory later. Everything is for Xu Shui. For our common, great cause. He roared, slamming his hands heavily on the interrogation table, causing the glass to vibrate. I quietly looked at him. This person had completely lost his mind. He wasn't for science, nor for Luo Xu Shui. He was only satisfying his own perverted, twisted desire for control and his so-called greatness. The real Luo Xu Shui, when she was conscious in that container, chose self-destruction rather than become a tool for his ambition. And he, until now, was still immersed in the lies he had woven. In court, Ji Xuanzhou was found guilty on multiple counts. Business fraud, illegal fundraising, intentional damage to property. The top-tier legal team hired by the overseas consortium behind him attempted to defend him by claiming mental instability due to excessive pressure. But in the face of the irrefutable chain of evidence submitted by our side, their defense appeared pale and ridiculous. Luo Xushue's family also traveled from abroad to attend the trial, accusing Ji Xuanzhou of defiling Luo Xushue's reputation during her lifetime, as well as stealing and abusing her core research findings. I submitted all the evidence, which my parents had started collecting before their deaths, regarding the numerous violations involved in Ji Xuanzhou's project in its early stages, and the complete video recording of him trying to force me to hand over the company's core technological secrets in the villa. The evidence was conclusive and irrefutable. In court, Ji Xuanzhou continued to yell, "You mediocre people don't understand. I'm breaking the rules. It's to bring a revolution to the market." In the end, he was convicted on multiple charges and sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. The moment the gavel fell, I felt a long, deep-seated weariness finally find release. Outside the courtroom, He Linzhou stood silently beside me, took off his suit jacket, and gently draped it over my shoulders. I looked up at him and asked softly, "If I didn't have the background of the Qiongding group, would you still help me like this?" He looked into my eyes earnestly, without the slightest hesitation. "I'm helping Yanxi, from beginning to end, only Yanxi." I smiled, the first genuine smile after this disaster. I began to focus on replanning the future of the Qiongding group, shifting the company's focus from those dangerous shortcuts that pursued quick profits to projects that were truly grounded and benefited people's livelihoods. Soon after, I established a foundation in the name of Qiongding Group, jointly named after my parents and Luo Xuxue. This foundation will be used to support and reward young entrepreneurs with great potential. Life could finally begin again. After Ji Xuanzhou went to prison, the overseas foundation behind him did not give up. They tried to claim ownership of all of Ji Xuanzhou's research data through complex international legal channels, claiming they were legitimate investors. I joined forces with He Linzhou to hire the top international legal team and actively defended the lawsuit. The lawsuit lasted nearly half a year. During the trial, we not only successfully protected the ownership of the data, but also, by following the clues, exposed the foundation's long-term funding of various gray area technology research around the world, and even suspected illegal data trading and money laundering. In the end, we won the case. All of Ji Xuanzhou's illegal research data was deemed to be a potential threat to human civilization, under the supervision of the International Scientific Ethics Committee, and was sealed and destroyed in stages. The foundation was also subjected to a joint investigation by several countries. Its reputation was ruined, and it was on the verge of bankruptcy. A year later, at a high-profile joint new product launch, I personally took the stage to announce our new project, a gene-editing therapy dedicated to overcoming hereditary diseases. All processes will strictly adhere to the highest ethical standards and be open and transparent to the entire society. During the Q&A session, a reporter asked me how I viewed the past experiences. I looked at the audience with a calm and firm gaze. That experience made me understand more deeply what the true spirit of scientific research is, and what is truly worth guarding with our lives. After the press conference backstage, He Linzhou, holding a bouquet of white roses, knelt down on one knee in front of me. He said, "In the past, I always silently guarded you from afar. Now, I want to stand by your side openly and create our future together. Yanxi, will you marry me?" I looked at the sincere and warm light in his eyes and nodded with a smile. With the consent of her family, Luo Shushue's vessel was disposed of in the most humane way possible. That distorted resurrection farce, triggered by paranoia and madness, had come to a complete end. My wedding with He Linzhou was held on a sun-drenched island. Simple and warm. We only invited our closest family and friends. Not long after the wedding, I discovered I was pregnant again. This time, there was no fear or unease in my heart, only peace and anticipation. When He Linzhou found out, he carefully held me in his arms and whispered in my ear, "This child must be an angel sent by heaven to love us." Our joint research project soon made a groundbreaking breakthrough. We successfully helped the first family with a rare genetic disease to have a perfectly healthy child. Watching the infant's innocent smile in his mother's arms, I felt unprecedented satisfaction and happiness. I occasionally go to my parents' graves, bringing their favorite white orchids. I would tell them about my current life, about the new direction of Qiongding technology, and tell them that their daughter had finally found true happiness. He Linzhou would always accompany me, standing quietly beside me, holding my hand tightly with his warm, large hand. Time is the best medicine. Those deep-seated traumas, nourished by love and hope, gradually scabbed over and faded, leaving behind a sense of awe for life and hope for the future. Our established research ethics fund has successfully funded many talented, idealistic young scientists who have upheld the bottom line of science. Looking at them, I seem to see the brightest future of science. My and He Linzhou's child was born, a healthy boy, with eyes as deep and bright as He Linzhou's, and two shallow dimples at the corners of his mouth when he smiles, like mine. I held the soft little life in my arms, looking at the clear blue sky outside the window. I know that the happiness that truly belongs to me is now firmly in my grasp. The past is like fleeting clouds. Only love and responsibility can make life shine brightly, illuminating the road ahead.